Hi students, today we are going to see Economics Unit 2 Employment in India and Tamil Nadu. நம்ம இன்னைக்கு என்ன லெசன் பார்க்க போகிறோம்? எக்கனாமிக்ஸில் யூனிட் 2 எம்ப்ளாய்மெண்ட் இன் இந்தியா அண்ட் தமிழ்நாடு. இந்தியாவில் இருக்க வேலைவாய்ப்புகள், தமிழ்நாட்டில் இருக்க வேலைவாய்ப்பு பற்றி பார்க்க போகிறோம். In this object, our learning object is to know the employment structure in India, understand the organized and unorganized sector, understand the distinction between public sector and private sector, understand the changing development employment pattern, to appreciate the case study of format. ஸோ நம்ம இந்த லெசனில் எம்ப்ளாய்மெண்ட் எப்படி உருவாகுது, இந்தியாவில் என்ன ஸ்ட்ரக்சரு, நம்ம எம்ப்ளாய்மெண்ட்டுனாலே என்னது, ரெண்டு டைப் இருக்கு இல்லையா, பப்ளிக் செக்டர் அண்ட் ப்ரைவேட் செக்டர், ஆர்கனைஸ்ட் அண்ட் அன்ஆர்கனைஸ்ட் செக்டர்ஸு, எம்ப்ளாய்மெண்ட் பேட்டர்னு, இதை பற்றி தான் இந்த லெசனில் பார்க்க போகிறோம்.
Before going into the main topics, let's start with the simple word employment. Employment is a situation in which a person goes for a work for a fixed period of time and gets salary in return to fulfill his basic needs like food, clothing and shelter. But now, employment is an important part which provides financial freedom and decision-making power. For every economic activity such as production, distribution and consumption, we need an employee and employer. Who is an employee? A person employed for wages or salary, especially at non-executive level. The meaning of non-executive level is an employee can give an advice or suggestion but not in a place of making a decision. Next is employer. People who employ these workers and pay salary for their work. Example, institution, organizations, etc. Next is labor force or workforce. The labor force consists of group of people who are able to work in a country or area. Labor force tells about both employed and unemployed in a country. There are certain age limit in labor force of economy. In accordance with the Constitution of India, persons who are less than 15 years are considered as children, and persons who have crossed 60 years are excluded as they are not physically fit to undertake any occupation. India's employment structure is multi-dimensional and divided into three phases, namely primary sector, secondary sector and tertiary sector. The structure of employment denotes the number of workers engaged in different sectors of the economy. The first sector is the primary sector. Major population of India is associated with primary sector because primary sector makes direct use of natural resources or extraction of raw materials. This sector includes agriculture, fishing, forestry, mineral extraction, mining, etc. This sector is more important in developing countries than in developed countries. Around 48.9% are employed in agriculture. Next is secondary sector. This sector generally takes the output of the primary sector. This sector manufactures the best finished goods. More than 24.3% of the Indian population is engaged in this sector. The activities associated with the secondary sector includes metalworking and smelting, automobile production, textile production, the chemical and engineering industries, etc. The third sector is the tertiary sector. The tertiary sector of the economy is also known as the service industry. This sector sells the goods produced by the secondary sector and provide commercial service to both the people and businessmen. More than 26.8% of the Indian population is engaged in these sectors. The important example of tertiary activities are transport, communication, trade, health, education and administration. Employment has always featured as an important element of development policy in India. This policy enhanced the human capital through skill development, creating sufficient number of decent quality jobs for all citizens in the formal and informal sectors. The word formal and informal are also called as organized and unorganized sectors. The employment growth has increased at an average rate of 2% during the year 1972 to 73. By the given tabulation, the highlighted year 72 to 73 has an increase of 2%, which is of 13%. The bar diagram of the given year indicates the decline of primary sector and increase in the other two sectors such as secondary and tertiary. Types of government. This government is divided into two, as organized sector and unorganized sector. First, we'll learn about organized sector. In India, employees of central and state governments like bank, railway, insurance, industry can also be called as organized sectors. This sector consists of workers in private or public sector that receives regular salaries and other benefits including leaves and social security in the form of provident funds and gratuity. They work under fixed terms of employment and cannot be terminated in a casual manner without notice. The unorganized sector of the economy characterized by the manufacturing activity and small scale industry. This sector is not registered with the government and whose terms of the employment are not fixed and regular. In this sector, no government rules and regulations are followed. They do not enjoy any special benefits or job security. Next, we learn about public and private sector. In public sector, the government owns the asset. Example, State Bank of India, BSNL, and government-based industries. Next is private sector. Private individual owns the asset. Example, TVS Motors, Ashok Leyland, and ICICI Bank. The definition of public sector. Public sector refers to the part of the country's overall economy which is controlled by the government or various government bodies. The definition of private sector is, it refers to the part of the country's overall economy which is controlled by individual or private companies. Let's see the difference between private sector and public sector. In private sector, unlimited jobs. In public, it is limited jobs. Unsecured jobs. Here, secured jobs. Unlimited works per day. Limited times per day. Unlimited age of service. Limited age of service. Only for earned profit. Only for social welfare. No bear of mistake or terminating from the job. Here, you cannot terminating without notice. Let's know the employment pattern. In recent years, there has been a change in the employment pattern. In the year 2019, 42.39% of the workforce in India were employed in agriculture, while the other half was almost evenly distributed among the other two sectors, industry and service. While the share of Indians working in agriculture is declining, it is still the main sector of employment. This has helped the employers to develop more flexible working patterns among their employees. The trends are increasing self-employment, firm using fewer full-time employees and tending to offer more short-term contracts. There has been a growth in part-time employment. This may be due to lifestyle of the people. Next is employment trends in Tamil Nadu. As agriculture started declining in GDP, that is gross domestic product, people started moving on to the non-agriculture sectors. This is because the non-agriculture sectors are yet to generate enough employment to effect a shift of labor force. Most of the employment growth in Tamil Nadu has been contributed by the unorganized and informal sectors. See a case study of employment in Iruvelpattu. What is a case study? A case study is often used for research of a person or a place. It is an important way of illustrating theories and can help to show how different aspects of person's life are. The village Iruvelpattu were first surveyed in the year 1916 to 17 by the students of Gilbert Slater, the first professor of economics in the University of Madras. Over the years, many scholars surveyed the occupation of villagers and collected many more details of each person in the village. It was clearly observed that the government brought social security awareness among the people of the village through primary health care, provision of schools, and maintenance of public distribution system. Though this village underwent many changes, it is still dependent on agriculture as the main occupation. During the year 1981 to 2008, the proportion of families engaged in agriculture has declined from 34% to 26% and cultivators from 42% to 33%. So the year 2008 case study tells the story of persistence of landlord power. As we deal with the topic employment, I would like to end the lesson with the current affair, COVID-19 pandemic, which leads to job crisis where 122 million people went out of work in April 2020 in India. So, India's unemployment is now at higher record of 27.1% according to the Center for Monitoring the Indian Economy. So, workers have faced multiple hardships with factories and workplaces shut down due to the lockdown imposed in the country. Before ending the lesson, let's have a quick recap. We started with the word employment. Employment is a paid work agreement between an employee and employer. Next, we moved on to labor force or workforce, which has an age limit. So, laborers should not be below 15 years and above 60 years. Then we saw about the employment structure in India, which is divided into three, starting with primary sector, that is getting raw materials, then secondary sector, manufacturing finished goods, then tertiary sector is a service industry. Then we learned about the employment policy and growth of India and Tamil Nadu. Economic activity are classified into organized sector, unorganized sectors, and further is being divided into public sector and private sector. And at the last, we saw about the employment pattern and trends in India and Tamil Nadu. As future generation, remember, prosperous farmers mean more employment, more prosperity for the workers and businessmen of every industrial area is prosperity in the whole country. Said by Franklin D. Roosevelt. I hope you would have.
Recap of this lesson. Labor force is the number of people in the country who work and also capable of working. Structure of employment denotes number of workers engaged in different sectors of the economy. The employment growth rate of India increased at an average rate of 2% during past 4 decades from 1972 to 1973. Organized sector provides job security and other benefits like insurance to its employees. Public sector means government undertakings. Employment patterns changes due to lifestyle of the people. ஸோ நம்ம இந்த லெசனில் என்னென்ன பார்த்தோம், லேபர்ஸ்லாம் எப்படி ஒர்க் பண்ணுறாங்க, அவங்களுடைய கேப்பபிள் என்ன, ஒர்க் என்ன, ஸ்ட்ரக்சர் ஆஃப் எம்ப்ளாய்மெண்ட்டு எப்படியெல்லாம் என்னென்ன செக்டர், ப்ரைமரி செகண்டரி செக்டர் எந்த அளவுக்கு ஒர்க் பண்ணுறாங்க, எம்ப்ளாய்மெண்ட் ரேட்டு, பப்ளிக் செக்டர் எப்படி ஒர்க் பண்ணுறாங்க, கவர்மெண்ட் எடுத்து அண்டர்டேக் பண்ணுறதுல பப்ளிக் செக்டர் அப்படிங்கிறத இந்த லெசனில் பார்த்தோம். ஸோ இந்தியா அண்டு ஓவரால் இந்தியா அண்ட் தமிழ்நாடு சென்ட்ரல் அண்ட் ஸ்டேட் எந்த அளவுக்கு எம்ப்ளாய்மெண்ட்டு என்கேஜ்மெண்ட்டாக இருக்காங்க, என்னென்ன எம்ப்ளாய்மெண்ட் இருக்குதுங்கிறத இந்த லெசனில் பார்த்துட்டோம். தேங்க்யூ சில்ட்ரன்.